Welcome everyone to this new episode of the Women in Technology Spotlight. Today I have with me Jacqueline Berger. She calls herself a data scientist in progress, but she is also a drilling engineer. She has a very interesting history. Welcome, Jacqueline.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your podcast. I feel very honored to be part of this series.
Thank you for giving me your time. It's an honor because I know all of us are busy, and I'm always happy to have women like you with such interesting journeys on my podcast. So, of course, I stalked you on LinkedIn, and I looked at your profile in detail. And you're an alumni of the Leoben Montana University, and you studied there. And I see you have been doing very interesting things. You've worked for OMV and for petroleum. I think you went to Romania and worked with the engineers there. And I also saw you were in Tunisia and worked for another company. Of course, as a drilling engineer, that makes sense because it's a very international job. But it seems your life has been very interesting, and now you're leaving this interesting life for an adventure in data science. So tell me, why are you transitioning?
Yeah, actually, I also experienced my life as a petroleum engineer as very interesting, and especially traveling and being international was a big contribution that I also am very thankful because it gives so much experience. But at some point in time when I was thinking about family and kids, I really tried to combine this lifestyle into my world. But after maternity leave, I just didn't feel I fit anymore. So I had to look for an alternative. And I was really open to different options, not only tech, so all kind of different new professions. I was screening through all of them, and in the end I landed in informatics and data science. Yes.
So I saw that because you mentioned your maternity leave, I saw you were working for Schlumberger, and then you went on maternity leave, and then you came back to Schlumberger, which is interesting because when I think of Schlumberger, I think of sparkling wine.
Yeah, that's the typical view in Austria. For Schlumberger means the wine, the champagne, and everywhere else in the world it's oil and gas. So that is really, it's really funny.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's just a side story, but I found that interesting. I was thinking, okay, what do they do with oil and gas? So oil and gas is a very male-dominated field. Tell me a little bit about working in male-dominated fields. How did you experience that?
To be honest, it has advantages and disadvantages. It really depends on the industry, I guess. But for oil and gas in particular, I can say that it is male-dominated, but not in a way that I felt suppressed by my gender. So I never felt like people didn't trust in my abilities because I'm a woman, especially on the rigs where there was physical work required. When men see you really trying your best, they will just run around and ask for if they can help. They will rarely stand there watching you lifting the most heaviest stuff around. And also, surprisingly, technology takes a lot of work that we think is still physical. There's a lot of machinery and tools and strategies where even you as a woman who is not like probably packed with muscles, you can do the same job because technology enables us to do so. So the male-dominated industry, yes, it is male-dominated, but I have not experienced it in a very negative way, to be honest.
It's interesting that you say that because that reminds me of my own experience. And I had basically the same experience. I used to work for another company where we had these big servers, VU units, and they were really heavy. And I never struggled because there was always, when I arrived with these big boxes, there was always a man who was willing to help me, carry stuff. And I never felt that they just wanted to see me fail or anything. So they were always very supportive. So, and that's good to hear that it's the same thing in the oil and gas industry. So coming back to your transition, because I do understand that this life of traveling and being on rigs doesn't necessarily jive with being a mother. And you said you looked at a couple of different professions and options, and then you kind of zoomed in on informatics and data science. Tell me, what interests you about that?
I think I had a common denominator with data science, which is the data. So it was not going out too far in my comfort zone, because also in my previous job, I was working with data, because on these rigs, all the tools and the rig itself is equipped with sensors that are streaming data in real time, and they have to be analyzed and plotted. So working with data was not entirely new to me, but however, on a completely different level, of course, in Excel spreadsheets or in our internal software creating PDFs. But I felt I like that part of the job. So especially when things go wrong, they will go to the drilling engineer and they will say, okay, can you show me based on the data what was happening and when did it happen, this kind of stuff. So that was already something I've did before, and I felt very competent. And that's why data science and working with data felt like a reasonable step.
So you didn't have a barrier between when looking at data and numbers, because you were already familiar with that. So you decided to go to the university, the college in Krems, I think, the FH Krems.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about that. So what kind of study are you doing there? What does it look like?
So the study program was just started a year before I was interested, or I looked at the curriculum. So it's brand new. My class is the second cohort starting there. And what I liked was that the entire program is in English. So it's a bachelor's program of 6 months. And the entire program is in English, which was really appealing to me, because in the end, I still want to stay international. Even if I cannot travel now, I might later. And if you want to work for the big tech companies, I think then English is just a must. So that was really appealing to me. And then also, since it was new, the program was so new, the program director also tried to really get a lot of external lecturers in there to meet industry needs. Which I think is really helpful, because I was looking for this hands-on experience. I didn't want to go too deep into the theory, because I wasn't planning to go for a research job, right? I wanted to be still an engineer in the end. So I wanted to have hands-on experience, and the 3 years bachelor just fitted money-wise and time-wise into my schedule.
Yeah. So on the one hand, that sounds super interesting. And the other thing I want to talk about is, so I have talked to a lot of women who have switched in the middle of their career from somewhere else to informatics. And I want to talk about that whole journey of switching careers in the middle of your life. So there's so much going on, I think, with your life. So you have this, you have a little child at the moment, and at the same time you're going to university, and you're usually when you go to university, you're like 18, 19 in Austria, and you're obviously also older than your colleagues, probably. I don't know, but correct me.
I'm the oldest in my class. Yes.
Yeah. So how do you handle all these things? How do you cope with all these things?
So I took a video actually on my first day to school. I took a video and I came late. Yeah, so it was raining cats and dogs, and I was super early, but there was an accident just in front, and I got stuck and late on my very first lecture. And I thought, like, what a nice start. So, but still on the way to Krems, I took a video in my car, and I was trying to record a message for my future self. And I haven't looked at it since then, because I want to do it at the end of my program. And in this video, I was mentioning all my doubts, all my fears, what can happen. Of course, if I'm 35 when I started, my biggest fear was how would I fit into this class? Obviously, I will not be like the others. I will be different. can I really study all this new content? And yeah, but in the end, I just said, okay, let's go give it a try. And then I had such a nice experience in my very first lecture. We had this get together sessions where like you would interview the person sitting next to you, what is the background, where the person comes from. So I did that with my partner. And then the lecturer said, did any one of you find out something interesting from these talks? And the neighbor next to me was raising his hands. Oh yes, she worked for oil and gas. So exciting. And then I felt immediately all these fears like, okay, yes, I'm different, but apparently people still think it's different in a positive way, right?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing with being different. We all experience this feeling of maybe not belonging in certain situations, and just understanding that your difference may be what makes you special. I think that's so important and so uplifting at the same time. So it's good to hear that you had that immediately when you started. Usually it takes a little bit of time. So tell me about your classmates. Are there a lot of women there?
So the class was like a school class, more or less 34. We started with 34 people and we were 8 girls.
Okay,
so
not bad.
Surprisingly many, yes. We had the big problem that we started entirely online. So we really, due to COVID, we only had 2 days in presence where we could see each other, and then we spent the entire semester online. So to be honest, the first semester, I hardly had a chance to connect with my classmates. And after the first semester, you could see in our Telegram group, people just dropping out. They didn't even say bye or anything. So I was shocked to see that, because I thought that's just feels wrong. It cannot be. And then I really started to actively, individually call my classmates and say, hey guys, what do you do in your free time? Or to the girls, what do you enjoy about this class, and so on. And then I really actively made it my goal to make this a class. And then I only found out that apparently I was super lucky to get into this class, because there is a really nice atmosphere. People work together, they help each other. There is nobody competes against each other. And I'm very happy that we kept most of the girls. Actually, only one dropped out from the program, and the other one got pregnant and is on a break now, but she will join us after maternity leave. She will continue the program.
Wow, that's so interesting. And it brings me to a topic that I think that is quite relevant also for women working in tech and other, male-dominated fields. Women tend to pick up, this emotional labor, because that's something we're good at. And I think you, as being the oldest in that environment, made you like the perfect person to bring the group together, which is a skill. I mean, this is something that women bring to the workplace, bringing teams together. And I think it also shows a form of leadership. And I see big things in your future, even if you don't see them. Because showing this kind of initiative and motivation to actually, as you said, make this a class, or make something a team, and bringing people together, trying to understand what they're interested in. That's a very important, very, very important skill. And it will be more and more important in the future, when we will be working with more diverse teams, and our leaders need exactly those skills. So yeah, and very, very interesting anecdotes about your university. And I love what you did there.
Thanks.
Talking about the future, when you think, you chose data science, obviously, but when you think about the future, what is it that you plan to do with your certificate, or your, what's it called? Your
bachelor's degree?
Yeah, your bachelor's degree, sorry.
No problem. For a very long time, I was really desperate, because I started the study program, and for an entire year, I had no clue what to do, because it said specialization in data science, but the first 2 semesters or 3, you don't see anything from data science as such. And then we had all these other classes, and I'm like, what am I going to do with that? And then suddenly all the interesting stuff pops up, like cybersecurity, which is kind of, I was always shaken between cybersecurity and data science, and now the cloud starts to pop up, and I feel like in a candy shop, you know, the kid goes in the candy shop and you can pick like one thing when you leave, and you're like, oh, I want this, but also that looks so nice. And it's a very hard decision, but I think it will come to the big players will be cybersec and data science. Mm-hmm. And one of my friends actually say, why don't you do data science in cyber tech, in cybersecurity? And I was like, yeah, actually, why not? Sounds crazy. But if there is one thing about IT, there are jobs that will develop that are not even yet established. So everything is possible. But to be honest, I still haven't fully made my mind. But data science is where I think I will feel more suited due to my previous background, simply because I've worked with data before. I've worked with clients before. I have a feeling about their needs. As you said, surprisingly good team player skills that I developed through my son, because before being a mom, I was on my own, go my way, I don't care, left and right. So yeah, it will be most likely data science or science.
You touched on a very interesting thing, because I think most people don't realize that there's a lot of data in security. So as you know, I was working for VMware, and one of the products we acquired was Lastline. And one part of what that does is it takes all the information from the network and analyzes it, and then decides whether something is a threat or not. And that is the big thing, you know, taking all that information that you get from different points in your network, in your infrastructure, from sensors, from this place, from your sandbox, from your network, and correlating that and understanding, is this some form of behavior that could pose a threat, is going to be one of the next, it's actually the big thing at the moment, you know, doing these things. So yes, it's actually possible to use your data science knowledge and the knowledge of how to create or shape the algorithms that will analyze the data in cybersecurity. So that might actually be a way to go if cybersecurity is something that interests you. You said that at the beginning you had all these things that weren't interesting. What was that? What were you doing when you thought, oh my God, what is this? Why am I here?
Yeah, so databases, definitely not my my preferred area. And also things like logic. Like when you have a class that is called logic or theoretical computer science, that these were just things that were so abstract on a level that I thought, like, what am I doing here? But in order to help people cross-changing from other industries into IT, I have an initiative with my school. So I asked my program director if I'm allowed to use the Media Lab and make some videos about our courses. And he was immediately like, yeah, go for it, Jacqueline, do it. You have my support. So what I'm doing there is I'm interviewing the lecturers in just a couple of sentences what their classes is about and what they're doing. And the logic lecturer was one of them, actually. That's why I remember this now. For people who are from outside, just to get an idea, what is this about? It doesn't, like, if you read a programming class, totally makes sense, right? Databases as well. But then if you start to have these cryptic names of lecturers, because you're simply not from the industry, and then it helps just to get an idea, what is it? And maybe it weakens the barrier for you to say, okay, I can do this, you know?
Yeah, that's such a marvelous idea. So what happened to those videos? Are they on the webpage of the FH Krems now, or what did you do with those?
They will be posted on YouTube on their channel. And I think during summer, so we should be able to expect them soon, but they are still in the cutting phase.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think that ties in so much with what I always say. Okay, we always talk about with working in tech or we're studying something in tech, and nobody knows what it really means, and that's just the next step, the next granularity. So then you decide to go into a study, or you want to decide, and you read, the curriculum, and you have no clue what all these things means. And now you have the chance to look at it. And I think that's something that every university should have for every single study, an explanation what the different classes will give you. So that's perfect. That's such a great idea. I love that.
I will hand it over to the FH if they want to extend it to the different programs.
Yeah, I think I think it would really be amazing, and especially for people who are not from the field. I mean, a lot of men, when they are younger, they start out already interested in computers. They have already, a certain background. A lot of women don't, or a lot of people who actually come from other fields. And for them, it would be especially useful to understand what is the role of logic in computers. Why do I need to understand that? Or do I need to understand which part do I need to understand, and all these things. And databases, yes, not necessarily terribly interesting, but so important. I mean, how do we store data? What does that look like? What does that mean? Is there a difference between the database we used in the past and in what we're doing now, and all these things? It's just so important.
Yeah. And I think in particular, a big unknown or a big question mark in tech is the vocabulary. Mm-hmm. I remember when I started in oil and gas, people were talking and I had to Google every fifth word in that sentence, because they have their own way of talking and you feel so lost. But after some time, you grow into this. And the same happened in IT. I started completely from new. People were talking and using terms, abbreviations, and you're like, okay, wait a second, I need to Google this. What is that? I can't remember that anymore. So the good thing is, from my previous degree, I know you will grow into this. It is totally fine not to understand everything. This will come with the time.
Yeah. And that's an important experience to make, really, because when you were saying this, I remembered when I started at VMware, and I came from a more hardware focused life with more network and security background. And I started at VMware to work in the networking and security business unit, yes, but there's this whole VMware world, and it's full of abbreviation that you've never heard before. Sometimes abbreviations that you've heard before, but they mean something else. And I think it was really for 2, 3, 4 months, I was worried that I'd made the wrong decision, because I couldn't understand anything. People were talking to me and it didn't make any sense, because all the words they were using, the abbreviations they were using, I did not understand them, and I did not know what they mean. And they actually have an internal database where you can search all these abbreviations, because because they know there are too many. But I think that's an experience you make every time you switch a field or you come into some new kind of technology. Thinking about it, I really also had that when I started working at Riverbed and went deeper into the networking space. I also had that for a couple of months, this adaptation phase that you talked about. And I think it's good to talk about that as well, because it makes people understand that they're not alone. Because when it happens to you, you feel like you're an idiot, because all of a sudden you seem to have lost the ability to understand words.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't feel like idiots, or we should. I like to read sometimes these motivational quotes, and one of them was saying, "Embrace the suck." So really be brave enough to suck at something. Just say, that's how it is. I can handle it. It won't stay like that.
Yeah. And I think that's the important point. It won't stay like that. And that is the experience you make when you go through that. And, just try to get over that sucky period. Then you realize that it's possible to overcome these things. And that's where we are in the whole area of personal growth. And this is, I think, your journey, because you're on a personal growth journey from one field to the other, switching careers, and personal growth is a lot about getting out of your comfort zone, and whenever you get out of your comfort zone, there's a high chance that things will suck for a little bit, or be scary or not comfortable. And that's exactly what happens there.
True. I can only agree on all of this.
So coming to motivational quotes, because you mentioned that one of the things I always ask the women on my series is, what did you learn? What would you tell young women who are going into this field or trying to, for example, in your case, your case is such a wonderful example of, someone switching a career and making it work. What would you recommend? What's the tips you have for these women?
So I have three things. The first one is, never compare yourself with others. You only compare yourself with yourself the day before or the week before or the year before. And the further you look back, you will be totally mesmerized about your growth, because we tend to look forward, not backwards, right? But don't compare with your classmates. In my class, of course, I'm not even daring to compete with programming skills from a 20-year-old who's doing this since he's probably 14. Of course not. But that's okay. I will look at the progress at my journey, what I did in the last 2 years. That's the first one. The second one is, be kind to yourself. Don't try to dump yourself and say things like, oh my God, I'm so stupid, because self-talk is really underestimated. It does something to your brain without you noticing it. It makes you smaller. Talk to yourself. When you say something, think about, would you say that to your best friend? You would never say to your best friend after getting a bad grade, oh my God, you're so stupid. You would never do that, right? So don't do it to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Allow yourself for mistakes. You're a person, a human being, not a machine. That's okay. And the last thing is that when you're about to do something like a career change, or you are attempting to, and you are really scared and afraid of the consequences, try to embrace that feeling. Accept it, because normally being afraid of something like that means you are going to do something really, really brave, something really big. So embrace it, accept it, and go through that.
Yeah. Wow, this is really wise words. All three I would definitely underline immediately. Comparison is really the death of any joy, because whatever you've achieved in your journey is yours, it's your growth, and comparing it to someone who has been doing something forever or, just kills all the joy you have in your success. Yeah, and self-talk, such an important thing. And because we all do it, we don't even notice anymore, just being really, being a little bit more aware of what you're doing in your brain and how you're putting yourself down. That is really helpful. Yes, great. Thank you so much for this. It was a pleasure talking to you. I wish you all the best on your further journey. And yeah, I see great things in your future, Jacqueline.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot to me that you say that, because I know you have a very broad picture on people, industry, and I'm a big fan of your work as well. I totally support that people need to be visible to motivate others. You need to show it's possible for others to make the step as well. So thank you for your podcast and all the work you're doing for visibility.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline.